Dressed for snow, sweating in the heat, Jack sat in his airplane seat decked out like he was heading to the North Pole in snow pants and boots. No heavy luggage slowing him down, just him, his backpack, and a mission. The man next to him gave him a confused look, raising an eyebrow. Dude, he was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, clearly prepared for the sweltering heat that awaited them. Jack loves the snow, but how is he planning to ski on the snow in the middle of a desert?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've entered the Dubai area, and as a precaution, the seatbelt sign is on. Please return to your seats and keep your seatbelts fastened until the sign is turned off. The current temperature is 104 degrees Fahrenheit, so try to avoid hugging any metal objects for a while. Enjoy your stay, and thank you for flying with us.
Stepping out of the airport, the heat hit Jack like an oven blast. He waved down a cab and got inside. The driver looked at his snow gear, surprised.
Marhaba, did you take a wrong turn to Antarctica?
Nope, just want to take a selfie with a penguin at Ski Dubai.
Soon, they arrived at the Mall of the Emirates, home to Ski Dubai, a snowy escape in the middle of the desert. It sounded crazy, but Dubai had a way of making the impossible happen. Yep, that's where it gets interesting. Dubai, November 2003. In a city that never seemed to stop reaching for the sky, was shifting from an oil-based economy to one driven by finance, real estate, and tourism. New malls popped up all the time, each competing to outshine the last. So simply offering luxury wasn't enough anymore. Dubai needed something beyond luxury, something so unreal that would make the world say, wow. Picture the world's longest indoor ski slope, stretching an astonishing 1,312 feet, designed to thrill skiers of all levels, including the very first indoor black run, reserved for the most skilled skiers, pushing them to execute tricky jump turns. The project was entrusted to the Majid Al Futtaim Group and led by CEO Phil Taylor. Behind this magical experience was a complex system called Snowmaking. This technology played a key role in turning this dream into reality, with small snow guns spraying a fine mist into the air, allowing tiny ice particles to form and fall as real snow. Snowmaking wasn't new. It's been around since the 1950s, when 3 Americans pioneered the snow cannon. But they probably didn't imagine their invention would one day help penguins perfect their snowman building skills in the desert. But sadly, for Ski Dubai, a more advanced method was needed. Snow wasn't the only challenge. The real test was keeping it cold enough not to melt. Engineers used a complex cooling system involving glycol and ammonia to maintain the perfect conditions. Glycol is pumped through pipes running beneath the snow and up to coolers in the ceiling. The glycol keeps the snow cold at around -1 to -2 degrees Celsius when the place is open. And at night, they lower the temperature to make more snow. The next thing was keeping the entire ski dome, which is about the size of 5 football fields, at the right temperature. This required a massive amount of cooling power, enough to run a small town. 24 coolers were installed, hanging from the ceiling to ensure that a significant amount of fresh snow would fall every night, maintaining an 8-inch layer of powder on the slopes. The system works a bit like a giant freezer. The walls of the building are super thick, like a giant insulated box, keeping cold air inside and reducing energy use. Energy costs are surprisingly low because of this, taking up less than 10% of the total operating expenses. The temperature inside the dome stays at 28 degrees Fahrenheit for skiing and 21 degrees Fahrenheit for snowmaking, creating a true winter wonderland. However, this is just the first half of the challenge, getting the snow and keeping it cold enough for skiing. The worst part is to build the slope. Damn. Jake looked around. What really blew his mind wasn't just the snow. It was the massive engineering effort that made it all possible. You see, while other ski domes are built on natural hills, Dubai had 0 hills, just sand dunes, making this one of the most complex and impressive projects of its kind. Engineers had to come up with a way to recreate the slopes. To do this, they built a raised platform using strong poles or beams called stilts. These supported the entire slope above the ground. It's like building a giant ramp or staircase, but much, much bigger. The base of the slope is made from materials like steel and concrete, which are tough enough to hold the weight of the snow, skiers, and equipment. The slope has to be durable, so it doesn't bend or break under pressure. and it must be built to last. One of the biggest parts of the slope, weighing as much as 600 elephants, had to be lifted 200 feet into the air. To accomplish this, engineers used a special technique called strand jacking, using 16 giant hydraulic jacks to slowly lift the massive chunk of concrete and steel. Each jack could lift 500 tons. Lifting the whole slope was about the weight of 20 jumbo jets, and it took 2 days. But as you'd expect with a project this huge, things didn't go so smoothly. Halfway through lifting the slope, the computer controlling the jacks crashed, leaving the entire structure hanging in midair. In a moment straight out of a disaster movie, the engineers rushed to figure out what was wrong. And luckily, it turned out it was just a simple power cable that had failed. But that wasn't the end of their problems. Just when they thought the worst was over, more chaos hit. Because what's a construction project without a last-minute catastrophe? These pipes are the backbone of the cooling system. Even a tiny leak could melt a 20-meter-wide patch of snow, shutting down the entire slope. Ugh. Every problem led to delays and millions in extra costs. Would they ever finish in time? The interior designers had their own headaches. They were shaping fake rocks from concrete, but the scorching 127-degree Fahrenheit heat in Dubai made the concrete dry too fast. To make matters worse, power outages stopped their tools from working, making the job even harder. On top of the technical problems, Dubai's famous sandstorms made things even harder. Strong winds would blow in and force construction to stop for days, causing more delays. But with all that concrete drama, did the designers ever wonder if the penguins were laughing at their struggles? And finally, Ski Dubai was ready to open. But the engineers working on the chairlift, which was responsible for carrying people up and down the slope, were close to finishing. While they were wrapping this up, some pipes that were buried under concrete had to be dug up and replaced. These pipes are important because they carry the glycol. The original plan was for these pipes to have no joints, meaning they'd be one continuous piece. Why does that matter? If there's a small leak in one of these pipes, the glycol can seep out and run under the snow. This would cause a big problem because the liquid would melt a large area of the snow. Imagine a small leak turning into a patch of melted snow that's 20 meters wide. This would not only ruin the snow, but could also damage the entire slope. If a leak happens, it would mean shutting everything down for repairs, leading to a big mess and significant costs. Convinced that the joints would leak when buried in the ice, the contractor had to replace these pipes quickly, but the manufacturer was slow to send the replacements, causing yet further delays. Even though it was 3 months late and cost way more than expected, the engineers finally fixed all the technical issues. They spent weeks making sure the cooling systems were perfect, and it took a whole month to make the 6,000 tons of snow needed for the resort. Despite all the setbacks, technical problems, intense heat, and near disasters, Ski Dubai opened in December 2005. But with millions in additional costs, strained timelines, and a series of near disasters, was it worth it? Well, the world certainly took notice. Penguins are released from their facilities a couple of times daily. These little guys walk around like they're late for a very important meeting. And honestly, they might be the best part of this whole thing. So while you may come for the skiing, you'll definitely stay to watch a penguin live a better life than you. Jack slid to a stop at the base of the slope, the cold air biting his cheeks. He was happy as penguins waddled through the snow park.
Hey, wanna take a selfie? All right, gotta go watch how a typo ruined $1 billion.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
I didn't invite you.